Are you ready?
Let's go.
Now circling in the neutral zone.
Here's the pitch on the way. 36 yards for the win.
This.
Here comes a big chance. The shot.
Is
this the dagger?
The neutral zone.
Home run. Good.
This is as good as it gets.
Now, here's your host, two-time Paralympian, Brock Richardson.
What's going on? It's time for another edition of The Neutral Zone. I am indeed your host, Brock Richardson. Coming up on this episode of the program, we are pleased to be joined by Nordic skiing athlete Natalie Wilkie, who was able to add 4 medals to her Paralympic resume at the recent Paralympic Games. Plus, it was recently Volunteers Week. The panel will discuss the importance of volunteers within the sports community. I'm joined by Josh and Cameron. Here comes your headlines. Cameron, welcome back from vacation.
Neutral Zone headlines.
Important date change. The Canadian women's para-ice hockey team is hosting a major fundraiser to support Women's Para-Hockey of Canada. The event is being held at Overflow Brewing Company on Saturday, May 31st. Doors open at 4 p.m. Cost is $60, which includes food and entertainment, with music being provided by Jim Bryson. There's no better time to support Canadian women's para-ice hockey than now, especially with them coming off a very successful series against the United States. Follow them on all their social media platforms for more details.
The Cruiser Sports is hosting their annual Cruiser Sports Para-Athletics Tryout Sessions, and it's going to be back, and it's going to be better than ever. We celebrate Athletics Day in Canada. This event is free, no experience is required, and it's open to all ages. And finally, all equipment will be provided. Events offered will include wheelchair racing, ambulatory running, frame running, para throws, both ambulatory and seated, long jump, and multi-sport-based games for our younger participants. Key disability groups that the event is targeted towards are visual impairments and physical disabilities. The date is May 2nd, and the time is from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. The location will be the Toronto Track and Field Centre at 231 Ian MacDonald Boulevard in North York. Please be sure to follow Cruiser Sports on all social media platforms for more registration details.
Pittsburgh Penguins captain Sidney Crosby recently obtained 5th overall in points leader in that spot in the NHL playoffs history. He accomplished this feat by hitting 202 points. We congratulate Sidney Crosby. He will certainly surpass that as he goes, because he is still very good at the age of 36. It's pretty crazy to believe that Sid the Kid is 36 now, and he's not just 20. Those are your headlines. If you want to get a hold of us on social, here's how you can do that very thing.
And welcome back to the Neutral Zone broadcast booth.
Play ball!
We're set to get this ball game underway. The first pitch is brought to you by Brock Richardson's X account at Neutral Zone BR.
Strike!
Pitch and a strike. Hey, gang, why not strike up a chat with Claire Buchanan from the Neutral Zone? Find her on X at Neutral Zone CB. There's a swing of the chopper out to second base, right at Claire as she picks up the ball, throws it over to the first base for a routine play.
Out!
And fans, there's nothing routine about connecting with Cam and Josh from the Neutral Zone at Neutral Zone Cam J and at J Watson 200. Now that's a winning combination.
We are so pleased and excited to be joined by Paralympian and 11-time Paralympic medalist Natalie Wilkie, who came off of a phenomenal 4-medal performance at the recent Paralympic Games. Natalie, welcome to the program. So nice to have you on board.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Natalie, let's start at the beginning. And can we talk about how did you become a Nordic athlete?
I actually acquired my disability, so I was an able-bodied athlete until I was 15. And that all changed when I had a shop accident in high school and lost 4 fingers on my left hand. And up until that point, I hadn't heard of the Paralympics before, which is kind of strange to say now because it's become such a big part of my life. But I was always a cross-country skier. I started skiing when I was super small. It was our family sport. My mom is a big cross-country skier, and she made sure all of her kids got into it too. So I grew up doing the jackrabbit program and then the race team. And then, when I was 15, I was in woodshop class in high school and unfortunately got into an accident. And after that, my coaches at the time contacted the Paralympic Nordic team, and I got to go attend a development camp and like meet other athletes like me who were also, working through like similar disabilities or like hoping to join the national team or work up to it eventually, and just try out the sport and see if it was for them. And that's kind of where I was at. I was like, I wonder like if this is going to be something that I want to pursue. And I think it was really important after my accident for me to continue skiing to kind of find a sense of normalcy in my life. And so all I did was drop 1 pole, which sounds simple, but the technique is completely different than skiing with 2 poles. And so it was a huge learning curve. I'm still continuously working on my technique. Obviously it's very different, just like one side of the body, you got to have like a super strong core to be able to like hold yourself stable and balanced. And it was a bit of an eye-opening experience, like being around other athletes who also had disabilities and like such a wide range of characters on this team. So that camp was really the first experience I had in the para world. And it was a good one. I kept coming back. I was invited to more races, more camps, and those were held in Canmore, which was a bit of a drive from my hometown of Salmon Arm, but a couple times a year I'd make the trip out and spend a week or two training with this development team and always like looking up to the national team skiers. Sometimes they join sessions and I was just so starry-eyed. I'd be like watching them ski and like try and like soak up everything that they were doing and like learn from them. And then I guess I just like continued until probably like a year and a half after I went to the first Paralympics. I had just turned 17 and actually I qualified in December and Paralympics were in March, but I wasn't decided that I was going to go until maybe a couple months before. And I'm glad I did because it turned out super well. And that was like a really big turning point in my career. But that's kind of how I got my start in the para aspect of the sport.
Now, as we mentioned in the opener, you were just at the Paralympic Games in Milan. Before even getting there, how did you feel about the games being there, and did they live up to your expectations?
Did these games live up to my expectations? Yes, they did. I think we really hyped up the land of pizza and pasta. Like we had been talking about it like since we, stepped on the plane to leave Beijing. We're like, okay, like who's in for Italy? Like let's get that good Italian food. It's going to be great. It's going to be sunny. It's going to be nice. And one of my favorite parts of this games actually was how many of our friends and family were able to attend. I think just the travel was a bit easier. Lots more people were able to come. I think some of my teammates had like upwards of 10 family members or friends attending. And it was just such a different experience having so many people in the stands, like cheering us. Like I could hear my name, like all around the course basically. And I hadn't had that experience before. And it was just so nice after a race to know that my mom was in the stands and, I could like walk over and just get a big hug from her at the end, which I don't get to do very often when I'm racing. And she did attend my first Paralympics in Pyeongchang in 2018. So that was awesome. And then this time my dad and my 2 sisters came as well. And then, just like different experience. I really liked it. And the village was situated inside Predazzo. And so it was just so easy to walk out, if you want a gelato or a coffee or just to visit family. A lot of our families were renting Airbnbs or hotels in the area. And so it was just, quick walk to go visit them or like eat out or whatever you wanted to do. So there was a bit more freedom in this games. Whereas the past 2 games I've been to, it was, like the village was very like, locked somewhere or like, in Beijing, we were so far from anything that like there wasn't a point, like you couldn't walk anywhere from the village. You'd have to like drive to get anywhere. And so it just felt like a little bit claustrophobic in a way, whereas this Games in Milan was so chill. Like I don't know what else to say about it, but it definitely did live up to expectations. I really liked the food and the dining hall. There was like a specific like pizza station where a chef would like make pizza like right in front of us. It was really cool. There was great pasta too. And yeah, just like lots of variety. I think Italy really set the standard. So I hope the next games will be able to live up to that.
So I have a quick question then for you, because you're talking about the food. What is your favorite pizza that you had there, and what's your favorite pasta?
Okay, I had this one pizza that was so good. I'm still dreaming of it. I forgot what it was called, but it had walnuts, it had apples, it had honey, prosciutto, I think, and just like that combination of like, you know, like the sweetness with like the cheese. It was just like chef's kiss. I could eat that every single day.
Nice. So your first piece of hardware at the games was a silver medal in the parabiathlon. And as I recall, you were pretty emotional during your post-race interview. Can you bring us back to that interview, that time, and where all the emotions came from?
That was a pretty emotional race for me because it was the first medal I won at the Games, but it was also the first medal I had won in parabiathlon at the Paralympics. And biathlon has always been something that I've kind of struggled with. I started it probably in 2018, so like 8 years ago. And at first it was super casual. You know, I'd like shoot a couple times a year, just see if I liked it, get my feet a bit wet. And a few years later, I started like entering some races, trying to like see if this was like something that I enjoyed or like was good at or whatever. And I think I just had such a slow start. It was really hard for me to enjoy the biathlon. Like I remember the first Paralympic biathlon race I did in Beijing. I think I came second last or something. I don't remember the exact result, but I missed 7 out of 10 shots. I think I like dirtied one round completely, like missed all 5. And I remember going around the penalty lap and losing count of how many laps I'd already done. And there's like a volunteer like counting the laps that people do to make sure that they don't cheat. And I was like frantically like gesturing to this volunteer or worker or whoever, like trying to like communicate like, hey, do you know like how many laps I have left? And so she like held up like some fingers and I was like, okay, 2 more to go. Like I can do this. But that was just a really demoralizing race, I would say, in so many ways. Like the skiing was great. And that was the frustrating part, was that I was feeling good. I was skiing well. I was fast, but the shooting was just holding me back. And that's kind of like the beauty of biathlon, is that there's 2 aspects to the sport. You have to be a fast skier. You have to be a fast and accurate shooter. And at that time, I just could not connect the 2. And so leading up to this games, that was one big goal of mine, was to win a medal in biathlon. And yeah, I think I've just come like so far in the last 4 years that when I crossed the finish line and realized that that was my first medal, just like the emotions kind of hit me and I just allowed myself to feel them. And definitely a few tears came out. But yeah, I was also, I mean, there was another reason I was a little emotional, was I was standing on the podium and it kind of hit me at that time, like standing beside my Ukrainian competitors, like just how much they had gone through to even like be at the Paralympics and then to be also winning medals. I don't know. I just like, I thought of it and I like started crying a little bit. I was like, that is so amazing. Like everything they've overcome, everything that's still going on in their home country, and they're still here. They're showing up, they're, you know, fighting hard, and they're doing really, really well. So there was just like a lot of things going on that day, but it was a pretty emotional day, a pretty great start to the games. I would say I was really happy.
Now you followed up that race with being Canada's first gold medalist of the games in standing parabiathlon. Does being the first gold medal for Canada mean a little bit more than maybe just winning a gold by itself? I mean, that's pretty amazing all on its own.
Like, of course, I was happy with the gold medal. I couldn't have asked for more on that day. Like clean shooting, fast skiing, it all just kind of came together. And I wasn't aware at the time that it was Canada's first gold medal, but I don't think it, like, I wasn't like bothered by it, or, you know, it wasn't like pressure. Like I knew I had, sorry, I'm just like rambling here, but
that's okay.
I just wanted to say that the fact that I won Canada's first gold medal was not what I was focusing on that day. I mean, it was definitely nice. I mean, I was proud to be the first athlete to win a gold medal for Canada at these games, but it also wasn't like something that I was letting get to my head or anything, you know, like that was race 2 of 6. I still had a ton to do, and it was a special medal, but I don't know. I don't want to get like too I don't want to inflate my ego too much, you know?
Then you won a second gold in para-biathlon, the women's sprint pursuit standing. Are the emotions and feelings different between your first gold and your second? And if so, how?
There was definitely a difference between my first gold and my second gold. Sorry, I'm just like trying to think of like how I want to say this.
Yeah, no worries.
The first couple of races, I was still trying to figure out the course and how I wanted to ski it. And I think like, you know, every race I got a little bit closer to learning the course and like knowing like how I would want to ski it in a perfect race. And I think by the time I won my second gold medal, like I was so familiar with like the snow and the course that I was able to like just focus in on my race plan, lock in. That was the 4th race I did at the games. And so at that point, like, you know, I had my routine set. I knew what I was doing for warm up, and I knew that, you know, my shooting was going well. And if like, you know, if I kept everything together and everything lined up for me, maybe with like a little bit of luck too, I had the opportunity to have a really good day. So that medal was special because, I mean, no medal is ever guaranteed. Like, you know, we show up to every race, we do our best, but we don't expect to win. Like I can do my best race, and if that's a 4th and that's all I had that day, I'm happy with that. But of course, you know, having the recognition of a medal is something a bit different. So yeah, I think it was just really special knowing that, you know, these moments are fleeting. Like, you know, the Paralympics were almost over at that point, and I just wanted to enjoy it. To win a second medal was more than I had hoped for. To win a second medal was more than I had hoped to achieve at this games. And so I was just so happy. I kind of just let myself like soak in it. I was like, okay, you've done the work, you did it, you can rest now, have your little like, you know, amount of time to recover. And then it's like already time to focus on the next race.
And you finished up the event with a bronze in cross-country skiing, the women's sprint classic standing. Can you take us through that race and what you remember?
That was a tough day, I would say. We had really good skis that day, especially in the qualifier. I actually won the qualifier, which may not have been the best thing, just like mentally. And when I think back to that day, there's so many things that I would want to do differently. I kind of like let myself get like caught up in like the emotions of racing the Paralympics. And I went to see, I spent a lot of time with my family, like in between the races, and I didn't get as much time to rest. And so I think that really affected my energy levels, because by the end of the day, I was completely tanked. But that was a really fun race. Like the course is not one that I've never done one similar to that. It's got this massive climb in the middle, and it's like this climb is, you know, where you make or break the race. And so it was just kind of like interesting to strategize around like tactics and stuff to, you know, decide how to tackle the course. And because we had 3 races throughout the day, like the qualifier, the semifinal, and then the final, there was a lot of opportunity to practice like different strategies. And I was really enjoying that part. The day before, I'd been going through the course with my coach, and we like chatted about a few things. And then on that day, I was able to put it into practice, which is always kind of fun, like, you know, having a race plan and doing your best to execute it. And I was just having fun with it. Definitely my energy levels were tanking by the end. I remember the 3rd time that day that I went up this massive Zorzi climb, I just, you know, I was trying to go faster and I could not find that extra gear. But it was still a really fun day. And I was super stoked to finish with the bronze medal. And yeah, it was just so special to, like, I love classic skiing, and that was the only classic race I did at the game. So I was really just trying to enjoy the experience. You know, the whole process of like testing skis in the morning, figuring out the wax and stuff, and then the course. There's so many pieces that go into a classic race and a classic sprint race. And so it was a fun day. That's all I have to say about it. I enjoyed it.
Now, obviously, for athletes at Paralympics, the goal is to try to win gold as often as possible, I suppose. When you look back on this event, how does it make you feel to know that you've come back with a medal of each color and an extra gold for good measure?
This is actually this exact same set of medals that I won at Beijing, 2 golds, a silver, and a bronze. I mean, I never take the medals for granted. I knew heading into this games that I was in contention to win medals, podiums, whatever. You know, you still have to show up and put in the work and actually like earn the placing. And so I don't take that for granted. I was showing up to each race day, you know, trying to like lock in, just focus on doing my best. And, you know, I would have had to be okay with like whatever outcome. And like, you know, if my best would have been like a 5th place or a 6th or whatever, like I would have been happy with that. I mean, it's not often that we get to compete on a world stage like this with so much media attention. It only happens every 4 years. Like the games is such a special experience, and I enjoy it every time. It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of time, you know, your energy is being like pulled like in all different directions with like family, friends, interviews, ceremonies, whatever. That is sometimes kind of hard to manage, but it's an experience that I always enjoy. And then to come away with 4 medals, I'm happy with that. I think I had a really good games. I know there's always something to improve on, but you know, I'm just happy to have like showed up, gotten that experience, enjoyed it, and you know, walking away with 4 medals is just the cherry on top.
You've now competed in 3 Paralympic Games. That's epic. And winning 11 medals, also epic. Now, what in your mind do you attribute such consistent success at the Paralympic game level?
I think I would attribute a lot of the success to my team. Like right when I joined the team, like they had a really good program rolling already. Like I know it takes time to like build up to a team that's so successful. And when I joined in 2018, you know, we had like all the veterans who were so consistent with their races, their training, some really great coaches as well. And there was like newbies like me who were just like wide-eyed and like trying to like soak in the experience and learn all we could from the older athletes. And I think just like stepping into that environment that was, you know, this team was already so established. Like everybody like together won so many medals in Pyeongchang. And that was the first Paralympics that I had been a part of. And I just thought that was so cool. And that's when I realized that this is like, you know, a team that I want to be a part of, and some teammates that, you know, I want to learn from them. Like they're doing such great things and I want to do whatever I can to be like them. And so I think like that team is really what has carried us through so well. And, you know, it's like the people I've learned from, I've had really great coaches, really great teammates like throughout my entire career so far. And I think we just know how to perform consistently. Like at this point, it's a job. Like, you know, we show up every day to training, we work hard, we set our routines, and we plan out like the whole calendar year, like of training and stuff. And we're just really practiced. We know how to like, you know, show up and perform for the most part, I would say. So I think it's really easy to have consistent results when that's the environment that you're in.
Now, one of the things that was really talked about towards the end of the event, in particular, was the weather conditions, and they were what they were. And obviously, athletes, I know I've been there, they get told, don't focus on the outside crap, focus on what is on the inside and what you can do at the moment. And then, of course, the conversation as we were leaving the games was the weather was what it was. Maybe we should move the games forward. And then Mr. Parsons said, yeah, that's good in theory, but then you got to move everything forward. So what's your reaction on the weather conditions now being a month and a bit removed from the games, and now you don't have to listen to the outside noise, because I can be the outside noise now? What's your reaction to that moving of the games and the weather as a whole?
I love the idea of moving the Paralympics earlier. Kind of struck me as strange this games. Somebody said to me, it's crazy that they would have the Paralympics in the worst winter conditions, because that's, how do I word this? It's strange that we have the disabled athletes skiing in the worst snow conditions. I think, we already have so many challenges with our disabilities that adding in the factor of snow that's difficult to ski in. It's just a real challenge, to be honest. Like, we don't often get to ski in conditions like these because they're not typical winter conditions. But every games that I've been to, we have mentally prepared ourselves and physically prepared ourselves. Like, tried to do like training camps in the spring and like warm, slushy snow, because, it's so different skiing through like wet, thick, heavy snow than it is like, like crisp, cold tracks. So it's just like we expect this every 4 years. That's how it's always been, but it's not something that we love to do. I mean, I showed up to this games and they had to salt the course every single day. They throw salt on the course to kind of make the slush become more icy and firm, which does help, but it breaks the snow down a bit faster. And by the last day, like, the snow was in pretty poor condition because of that. On the training days before then, we were like, it was skiing through like a ball pit, like thick, like granular snow. And we were sinking like up to our shins. It was really not what you'd expect typical winter conditions to be. And so the fact that there's been talk about moving the Paralympics earlier or potentially like switching the Olympics and Paralympics, I honestly wouldn't mind doing the Paralympics in January even. And with that idea, like, we could also use the Paralympics as kind of like a build up to the Olympics, like, build all this hype and excitement, like smaller event first and then bigger event with the Olympics. And I think there's like so many ways that we could go about this that would be better than what we have now. And, of course, like, I'm happy to keep the Paralympics in March. Like, that's what I've been doing. And, we just deal with the snow conditions as they come. Like, it's the same for everybody. Everyone's in the same boat. And so we just show up and race and do our best. But my personal preference would be to ski in better conditions if I could choose.
In addition to your success on the course, you also had the added honor and, I guess, responsibility of also being the first ever Canadian flag bearer for both opening and closing ceremonies. I wonder if you can talk to us a bit about that and the feelings involved in that.
That was honestly such a huge honor. Leading up to the games, I hadn't even given any thought to the flag bearer, who it might be. And the way I found out was CPC told me that they were going to do an interview with me. And so I show up to the interview, and then as soon as I'm on the screen, they're like, yeah, so just so you know, this is not actually an interview. We're here to tell you that you've been selected as Canada's flag bearer for the opening ceremonies. And I got to be co-flag bearer alongside Tyler McGregor, who is an awesome human being. And it was unexpected. I was super proud to represent my country. I was a little disappointed that we couldn't get to like walk or anything. We had a bit of a different opening ceremonies where none of the athletes actually attended the opening ceremonies. We just like sent in videos of each team, each country. And then they kind of like put that together into the ceremony. And then to be named closing flag bearer as well, that was even more unexpected. I don't think any other Canadian has been opening and closing before. And I was just so incredibly honored. Like, I don't even know what to say about it. I wasn't expecting that. I was really proud to represent Canada in this time. And I got to share flag bearer duties with Mark Idison. Super cool guy. We switched the flag like halfway through the walk. So we went halfway across the stage. We kind of like switched the flag, continued on. And it was so fun. I have never walked a flag before. I think that's something that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. And yeah, like, I don't know what to say about it. It was a huge honor to represent Canada.
Wonderful. Just one last question. If we backtrack for just a second, you mentioned to us that you enjoy classic cross-country ski. For those of us that might not be as educated on the sport, what other cross-country skiing is there, or is there a different way you would have to prepare for, I guess it's called skate?
So in cross-country skiing, there is two techniques, classic and skate skiing. And skate skiing is similar to the movement you would do on ice skates, like on a pond or a rink or whatever. You're just kind of like moving side to side. And then classic is a bit different. I would say it's more like walking or running, but you have grip on the bottom of your skis. We call it wax. And that's how you can like run up the hills. So both are a little bit different, and we generally like switch between the two. So this games, I only had one classic race, and the rest were all skate. And then when I ski biathlon, that is only skate skiing. So we don't switch. So cross country is classic and skate. Biathlon has only skate.
Wow. It's one what I love, and I'm the guy that, you know, writes the questions aside from our follow-ups. And we were talking about your first medal and how you were so emotional. And as you were telling that story, I'm listening to you as a person, and it's like, yep, you were emotional as an athlete, you know, successfully winning a medal, but then you stopped, and this is where I wanted you to go, because I was also emotional during that as well. And the fact that you stopped and talked about Ukrainian individuals who have been through what they've been through, and yet you as a Canadian can recognize that and can say, I know, I feel the emotions. Sometimes I think as athletes, we can kind of get in this mode of like, hey man, we're focused on in our own home, for lack of a better word, and in our own situation. So for you to stop and sort of realize, hey man, these athletes are also going through it, and they were standing on the podium with me, that's really, really cool. And I'll give you a chance to respond, but I just want to say that on behalf of all of us, because I know we all feel the same way, like the utmost respect for you to stop and recognize that, and not just realize, hey man, I'm in my own house here. I'm taking care of business. I've got medals to win. You look outside and you realize what the world's going through is beyond just Paralympic sport.
Thank you. That's really kind. I'm not saying that for clout, because I really was feeling emotional because of the Ukrainians. And, you know, ever since Beijing, like I was so impressed then too, because Russia declared war on Ukraine, like I think a day or two before we started racing. And I thought it was crazy how, you know, these athletes' families were not safe in their own country, and yet they stayed, they competed, they did super well. And unfortunately, the war has been continuing and it's still going on, and the situation has not changed. I just thought it was really brave how, you know, they're training through a war in their own country, and they're still showing up and still racing and still doing well. And what I always appreciate about them, like, I wonder if this is like a countrywide like value or something, like the Ukrainians always seem to show up with such like, you know, determination. They fight really hard. They race like, you know, they're there to win everything, which they do. They're really good. But I'm always just like impressed by their strength and determination. And then off the course, they are such nice people. Honestly, like I live for the finish line hugs. I can battle it out on the course with all of my Ukrainian competitors. And then at the end, we're like, you know, laughing and like, you know, saying congratulations, good job, hugging, taking off each other's skis. And I just think that's such a good show of sportsmanship, to be honest. Like the way that they can, you know, be super focused on course, but then, you know, just be regular people at the finish line. And I've always appreciated that about the Ukrainians.
Here. We thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview. Very few times I have had to work through the back channels of finding an athlete, and this was one of those unique scenarios where I had to find part of your team. Usually I deal directly with the athlete because I have my ways of finding them. But in this case, I had to deal with the back channels, and from beginning to end, it was just so great. And then to put the cherry on top, we really enjoyed the interview, and it was really great to have you. And from this point forward, as is all of our athletes that join us, you are now part of the Neutral Zone family. So anytime you have success, I'm going to be bugging your people to come back and join us on the program.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a big honor.
Awesome. We loved it. That is Natalie Wilkie, who is now an 11-time Paralympic medalist. And at this recent Games, she won 4 of them. You know, sometimes you have interviews that you do in that you know that there's certain things that you're going to pull from. And you know it in the moment from when you're watching the Paralympic Games. And I knew I wanted Natalie on our program from the time she won her first medal, because not only was that an emotional situation, but then she came off of her race and she was pretty emotional, as she just told us about. And I really appreciated that. I look at that and think, wow, just such a great thing. And Josh, before we hit record on this, we mentioned earlier that you just wanted to add something to that whole piece of that conversation.
Yeah, I just think that it's a very mature view of the world when someone can take themselves outside of I'm at the Paralympics and I'm here to win medals and say to themselves, hey, these athletes beside me on this podium have gone through a hell of a lot more than I have to get here, and they deserve my respect and my emotion. It's very, very easy to stay in your own lane, so to speak, and just focus on the fact that you are at the Paralympics and you've worked hard and you've trained hard and you want to win medals and you've just won a medal. But then to be able to look to your left or your right and see somebody who's literally gone through war in order to be there and recognize that is something that you will never have to worry about is just very mature.
For those people out there that are going to look and say, that's the thing you should do in a moment like that, I want to come out and say, I agree. I think that is something you should do. You should be able to, take a look at the world, the status of the world, and recognize what's going on. But that is a lot harder than it sounds. It's easy to say the words that says, well, that's what you should do, but you really are in this lane and this goal of like, hey, I'm here to win medals. I'm here to win. I'm here to do this. I have on the docket that I want to win, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is that you're able to do. It's not easy to turn your athlete brain off and say, I'm going to put the world at the forefront in this moment. And I know, based on talking to Natalie, Cam, that it really hit her like a ton of bricks of like, wow, this moment really hit me, and it hit me in the feels, and it hit me in the feels at home as well.
Yeah, it certainly did. And it just shows you the type of compassionate, empathetic person that she is, to be thinking of other people and what they're going through in that moment that she won, but yet she's thinking about, the teammates. And she talked about, that they are at war, and they have been for a while now, and they have to train during this war, and they come over here, and they're such nice people, the Ukrainians, and like that just shows her what a wonderful character she has. And I think it showed up in another part of the interview as well, when we had asked her a question, and it was about her, but she made it about the team. And I was really impressed with that too, because a person that doesn't just think of themselves, that's an empathetic person, or is very emotional and intelligent, thinks about the team, because they know that it's not just like they're the one competing, but it takes a hell of a lot of people to get them to, be on the podium. So I was really impressed, when she talked about that as well.
Yeah. I mean, I was not going through a war, during either of my Paralympics. The closest thing that I can say, and this is not comparing apples to apples, but I want to give perspective. The closest sort of moment is when I was in Guadalajara, and there were individuals with snipers at the top of the building when anybody would come in the building, because there were protests and there were people that didn't want the games and didn't want them there. And you get that real moment of like, oh shit, the world is here. Like, we all act like and want to pretend that sports is its own realm, but we've seen time after time that the world creeps in, and particularly right now, the world is creeping into sports. And so I cannot imagine what it is going through, a Paralympics with war. And then on top of that, then the International Paralympic Committee decides we're going to let Russia be a part of these games, and we're going to be the first to do that. The International Olympic Committee said no, and then the Paralympic Committee, who up until this point had decided we're going to follow suit, and then we decide, no, actually, we're going to allow that. So when that's heavy and you can win 4 medals and 11 in total, like, my God, that speaks to the character of people and the people around the games. And better yet, emotions are even higher because now they're allowed family and friends in the stands, which they weren't 4 years prior to that because COVID was a thing. So right now, the Winter Paralympics have been through so much, and so much has happened, and yet we had a very, very successful games. I wasn't sure if either of you wanted to jump in there, so I left some space, but silence spoke for me there, which is good enough. It was a real pleasure to have Natalie part of the program, and wish her nothing but success moving forward as well. Something that came across my social feeds this week was that it was recently Volunteer Week, and I thought that we would discuss the value of volunteers and why they are so important. So let's start with this blanket question. Why are volunteers so important? Let's start with Cameron on this one, and we'll go straight over to Josh.
Well, they're the heart of any organization or association. Without volunteers, a lot of those organizations and associations, I don't think they'd be able to function because of all that they do. Just taking the cruiser sports, because I can talk about that because I was part of the cruiser sports before. It's all volunteer based, or at least it was back then. And they raise all the funds so the club can, go to competitions. And all the coaches, they're all volunteer too. So without the coaches on the ice, we would have no direction whatsoever as far as trying to be a team. I don't know what else to say other than that. They're the heartbeat of any organization or association that mostly relies on them.
Absolutely. I agree 100%, Cam. Having been a board member with Cruisers in the past and in other aspects of my life, I can tell you organizations may have a paid person here or there, but the majority of them, especially as we talk about parasports, are all volunteers. And I have had the pleasure of being involved in hockey tournaments, track and field meets. I've helped out at bocce tournaments. I've helped out at basketball tournaments. And if they don't have enough volunteers, the event just simply does not run. Point blank.
Yeah. I mean, volunteers are needed. Volunteers are the thing that really makes the train go forward, and without them, events don't function. I mean, that's why organizations will say, we'll provide community service, we'll provide lunch, we'll provide whatever it is we have to provide aside from a nominal amount that we can put forward, because the organizations don't have the money to just start paying their volunteers, so they need to make it worth your while in doing that. What makes for a good volunteer? What's a quality that you go, this makes a good volunteer, and when I see this, then I know I've got a good one on my hands? Josh, start with you, and we'll go straight over to Cam.
Well, the first thing, or the first word that comes to my mind is enthusiasm. It's if you're a person that shows up because you feel you have to, then you're not going to enjoy it and you're not going to give your best. A good volunteer gives their time, they do their best, and they're excited to be there. They're ready. They walk in, they go, I'm here. What can I do? How can I help? And that's, I think, the most critical thing is they want to help. They want to be there. They want to pitch in, and they'll do whatever they're asked, whether it's setting up chairs, whether it's marking lines on a field for a track and field meet, whether it is unloading gear from somebody's van for them. They jump in and they do what's necessary.
Yeah, Josh basically took the words right out of my mouth. It has to be a person that goes in there and is willing to do anything. And they have to be passionate about what they're volunteering about, because that will show in their work ethic and how they talk to people at the event, or at wherever they're volunteering at. So yeah, enthusiastic, like Josh said, and I think they have to be a hard worker and be willing to do, put their ego aside and do whatever they need to do in order to, help at the event or organization.
Yeah, for me, I think we also want to add that they have a willingness to learn. Because I know for me, when I volunteered for my first bocce event, the only event that I had ever seen was the Paralympics. And so I knew of the sport, but I didn't really know the rules. I didn't really know the things that would need to be done. And so I rolled in and I met with the meet organizer and I said, okay, I know what the sport is. I know the concept, but what do you need me to do? Oh, we need you to score. Okay, can you teach me how to do that? Yeah, no problem. It's easy. Okay, let's go. And I learned, and now if they need me to come again for an event in the area, I can do it.
Yeah. There's just a feeling of volunteering that you really can't describe. And I know that we've all been para-athletes in one way or another on this podcast, but I would go out on a limb and say that we've all, and I'm throwing in Claire, that's why I'm saying I'm going out on a limb. We've all volunteered in certain aspects. What, Cameron, does it do to a person who plays parasports in this case and also volunteers at the same, like not at the same time, but also has volunteered? Like, is there a different appreciation, a different feeling? Like, how would you describe that?
Between competing in a para event and volunteering at a para event? Okay. Volunteering at a para event is much different than competing at a para event, because there you're competing, you're in that zone of I'm competing, I want to win the game, I want to make sure I do this properly, I want to make sure I do that properly, and you just go out and maybe you go to a room, or maybe somebody hands you a bag with goodies in it, or maybe you just go upstairs for lunch, between hockey games. And in the moment, you're not really thinking about what it takes in order to get all of that done behind the scenes. When you're a volunteer, I think that's when I appreciated it more, because of all the work that you have to do to get those loot bags ready, or if you're the ones cooking, to get that ready. And even if you're not cooking, if you have an outside company coming in that brings lasagna and garlic bread or whatever it is that they bring, you still got to get the tables set up and the chairs set up, and things like that as well. So and there's so much more behind the scenes that I'm not even covering, like all the referees that have to get organized as well. Entry and departing the rinks, and setting up hotel rooms for everybody, which would be my neck of the woods because I used to be in the hotel industry. That takes a lot of work to get set up and talk to hotels. There's so many things that you have to do to set up as an organizing committee, or even if you're there just as a volunteer, to stand by the dressing rooms and, okay, here's your key, and I've got to get this key back from you once you're done. And then you grab it, and then you got to give it to the other team. And yeah, and I only touched on some things like signs on doors. You've got to put a bunch of signs on a bunch of different doors, and oh gosh, I'm just tired thinking about it. I feel like I'm volunteering on the show right now. Oh wait, I am.
Here. Josh, I want to piggyback on something I'm not sure that the audience would have heard. I heard it. You said you got to find the people, and that's a real starting point. Like that, if you don't find them, you're not doing the dozens of things that Cameron just articulated in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Cameron mentioned referees. I'll extend that into track and field. You have to find the on-field officials. Those folks in particular are, in many cases, seniors, and they're retired. They may not be available the day you want to hold a meet. And so somebody has to phone around and find enough officials for the meet. If you don't have enough officials, and if you don't have enough referees, you can't have as many events. You can't have as many games going on. So someone has to coordinate that. Someone has to coordinate the volunteers who are going to run the silent auction raffle, the people who are going to put the oranges and apples and bananas in the dressing room after the hockey games for the athletes to refuel themselves with. You have to have somebody who's running the quote unquote nerve center, who's taking in all of the game sheets from all the games and posting the results so that teams know where they stand. And you've got to have people stationed throughout an arena or throughout a facility, so that when somebody comes in and goes, "Hi, I'm here to see the ambulatory 200 meter. It's about to start." Yeah, just go right over here, and the stands are right there. Like there's so many people that are needed, and you can't pay everybody to be there. So you have to have volunteers. If you don't, the event just does not run properly.
Here. Josh, I'll start with you on this one. And basically it's do you agree with this statement, and thus elaborate one way or another. You can really use parasports as a learning moment. Like, here's a sport, here's a scenario, here's something that you can educate yourself. It can be good, and it can be, oh my God, we're starting from zero with this individual. And that can be something that can be a challenge. But what do you take from the idea of parasports can be a learning opportunity for people, which can really do well?
Oh, it absolutely can. I think in that instance, what you do is you gauge the interest level of the volunteer. If there's someone that has been to that event before and know what it's about, then you can give them more responsibility. If, and I'm not knocking high schoolers here, but if you have a high schooler that's just there to get their 10 hours of community service or whatever it is they need to graduate, and then they want to go, then maybe you give them more of the grunt work, or more of the, okay, after these teams go out on the ice, you're going to go and replenish the fruit in the dressing rooms. Like, you give them simpler jobs. So it can also work that once someone has done the grunt work and has seen some of the other jobs, then maybe they get interested, and maybe they come out of a dressing room and they see a game on the ice and they stop and they look at it and go, wow, that's really cool. How does that run? How does that work? How do you coach that? And then you have an opportunity to possibly get them into a coaching program and get them into a position where they can be an assistant coach on a team and then graduate to a head coach when a head coach leaves or can't be at a game for a day. So it really all depends. I mean, I think back to our para athletics team, and specifically I do the throws side of things, so the shot put, the javelin, and the discus. We have had young people come out, and we start them off really simple with like, yeah, so basically this is Josh. You're going to retrieve whatever implements he's practicing with today, bring them back to him because he can't go out in the field and get them himself. And, he'll basically tell you what he needs you to do. And then it's like, hi, how are you? And sometimes you get a talker and sometimes you don't. We've had at least one student that stayed with us through most of her college education as well as her high school. And it was actually her sister that roped her into doing it. She dragged her sister along with her to a meet one day because they both needed volunteer hours. And the sister did her hours and left, and her sister stuck around. So we were very glad to have her. And she even talked about possibly getting into coaching it, which would be really cool.
Yeah. As I understand, you're asking about the valuable learning experience and teaching moments of a volunteer. So I look at it from the perspective that I hope it teaches them about inclusion and being able to...
Hear to that. Well said.
Yeah. So about inclusion and, treating a disabled person as your equal, not as someone that's less than. Because a lot of the times when people go, able-bodied people, like we say in the disabled community, they look at a throwing competition, or they look at a running or wheelchair racing, or, pick any disabled sport, and they go, holy crap, they're really good. I didn't know this. And I'll never forget, like when the Pan Am Games, I think it was Pan Am Games, were here in Mississauga, and they had rugby or murder ball. Was that the Pan Ams? Or yeah,
the Para-Pan Ams were here at one time.
Yeah, and my aunt and uncle came. They're from Rochester, New York, and they were amazed by like all that was going on in the hitting, and they're like, oh my God, they're going to get hurt. And I'm like, hurt more so than they already are. They're already disabled. Like, they're not going to get much more hurt. But they were just amazed by it. And so were my parents as well. They were amazed by it too. So that when you ask that question, that's how I looked at it is that, and I'm always hoping this, and it's not going to change. So I need to go to reality, which I don't think I ever will, because I'm 52 and I'm still hoping for this. And I still think it's possible to have inclusion and to, treat us as equals.
Hear. Cameron, I'm really hoping that you give me one response to this, and I've been waiting for this all day. But I'm gonna ask, Cameron's a Leaf fan. I'm gonna lead him to where I want him to go with this.
You're trying to piss me off right at the end of the show. All right, let's go.
Cameron's a Leaf fan, so yes. I'm curious.
So are you.
What NHL series for the playoffs compels Cameron? And I'm pretty sure he's gonna respond in one way. Ready for this? 3, 2, 1, go.
None. Hockey is dead to me if the Leafs aren't playing. I don't give two pucks who wins from here on out.
That is the response that I have been waiting for since Friday when I sent the script out, because I'm like, Cameron's on the show, and right at the end, I'm going to ask him what series compels him, and he's going to tell me hockey is dead to him. Thank you, Cameron, for coming through. Josh, what series compels you, if any? Is hockey dead to you as well?
Hockey is not dead to me, but it is certainly not as thrilling to me as it once was. However, the Montreal-Tampa Bay series is intriguing me, just by virtue of the fact that I'm not sure how many of them are going to be left standing when they're done. Those two are killing each other. And side note, the other one that's kind of interesting to me is the fact that the Philadelphia Flyers have a 3-1 stranglehold on the Penguins, who you would think would have done and dusted them a long time ago.
And I will say one thing. It's interesting. It's been 2 series, and the Ottawa Senators have only won 1 game over 2 series now. And I love the meme I saw about Tkachuk and how he has 0 goals in the series, 0 assists, and he has 7 penalty minutes. So they're now calling him 007.
Love it.
What an idiot that guy is.
See, Cameron, I knew that you would come with some nugget at the very end of this this podcast, so I knew that it wasn't entirely dead, but you came through. I will tell you that the same series compels me in that Montreal and Tampa Bay. I would have not told myself at the beginning of this hockey season that I would be compelled by anything the Montreal Canadiens are doing, but I am. They are a quick team. They deserve to be where they are. They are getting seriously good defense. Who knows what will be left of defense when this is all said and done? I have no idea. Cannot hate on John Cooper. Love him. It's just been a great series. The other one is the same one Josh mentioned, and that's Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. I thought that would be more of a bloodbath, as in the series like structure, than it is. I thought it would be like tied, 2-2 at this point, and we're fighting for, who's taking control, but that's not been the case. I want to give a quick shout out to the Toronto Raptors, who really seemed to be dead in the water after the first 2 games, and we're all like, oh God, they're going to get swept. It's going to happen. They picked themselves off the mat and said, we're going to win both of our games at home. So shout out the Toronto Raptors. Shout out what they're doing. I still don't think they're going to win the series. They may now lose it in 7, which would be a total success, I think, for them for this season, if they were able to push it to 7 and make it happen. With the amount of turnovers they were having, it's just, the fact that we're here at 2-2 is pretty remarkable. So shout out the Toronto Raptors as well, as we roll out the door for this week. That is the end of our program for this week. I would like to thank Josh Watson, Cam Jenkins, and I'd also like to thank our technical producer, Mark Aflalo. Stay tuned for next week, because you just never know what happens when you enter the neutral zone. Be safe, be well.